Welcome back to Bible Answers with Pastor Mike, and we've got something that is on everybody's mind, the holiday season, and we often get questions, and the question is posed to us from Jeremiah 10:3-4. They want to know if this is dealing specifically with Christmas. Why don't I read the verses for you here? Jeremiah 10 says this: "For the customs of the people are vanity. A tree from the forest is cut down and worked with axe by a craftsman. They decorate it with silver and gold. They fasten it with hammer and nail so it cannot be moved." Is that dealing with Christmas at all, Pastor Mike? Is that dealing with the trees?
Well, I can see where someone might look at that and say customs of the people. The custom of the people is putting up a Christmas tree. They decorate it, and they. But clearly, what you quickly have to read over and miss is the fashioning of the wood of the forest into what is later described in verse 8 as an idol. Mm-hmm. And in chapter 8, verse 19, that was discussed. The idols are carved by the craftsman and they're worshipped instead of the true God of the Bible. And so I guess I could say, the only warning here would be if you find yourself worshiping your Christmas tree, then I would say definitely you need to not do that. But that passage is not talking about Christmas trees. It's talking about the fashioning of idols from the forest and ancient Israel, and people were supplanting the worship of the true God Yahweh for the worship of idols. And
sure.
That's sin, obviously.
Well, that kind of brings us up to then maybe the question about all of the festivities attached to Christmas at that point in time, because
and you hear that because people say, well, isn't this, this isn't really the birth date of Christ,
right?
We don't
attached to some sort of paganistic rituals.
And it was a Roman, it was actually a set of festivities. I think it was for over a week where they worshiped Saturn, and it went up till December 25th. And they say, well, it seems pretty convenient that the Romans then adopted that. The Roman Christians did in the 4th century as the focus of the service they would have in honor of Christ's birth. Mm-hmm. And I've addressed this in other videos, and certainly in answering questions as it regards redeeming certain days. And it certainly was a day where the Roman citizens had the day off. It was a time of celebration, and Christians, well-meaning Christians, took that and said, let's redeem that for something good. Let's put our focus on Jesus Christ. So it doesn't matter what day. I mean, we could talk about worshiping Christ on a Sunday morning, which again is named after the sun god, and is that pagan for us to do that? Of course not. We have our reasons for doing it, and we do it on that day, and it doesn't matter, according to Romans 14, what day we do it. And certainly when it comes to celebrating the birth of Christ, because Christ didn't reveal to us what day he was born on the calendar, we're free to do that on any day we choose. And because that's become our tradition, so there's nothing wrong with that. And you can't play the game of guilt by association. And we always talk about that, because it was, a day that was important on the pagan calendar, we can't worship on that day, or we can't celebrate on that day, or because, there's some connection to who knows what. You could play that game endlessly. Right. And all I'm saying is, as Christians, as the principles are laid down in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, we focus on the reality of it. For us, there's only one God. That's what we do. And Paul was dealing with the meat sacrificed to idols in Corinth. And so, we're not bound by those things. And we can certainly celebrate the Lord Jesus Christ and his incarnation. And you want to put up a tree, that's great. If you don't want to put up a tree, that's fine.
So there's no inherent worldliness connected to this celebration at all. The Christians don't need to worry about
Not inherently. I mean, you could miss the point of Christ, as we often say at this time of year. You got to keep the Christ in Christmas. I get that. But as long as we're focusing on what we're doing, and these things are the mere garnish that allow us to celebrate festively the coming and birth of Christ, that's fine. You look at a person's Christmas tree who celebrates Christ's birth, it's usually decorated with things that remind us of Christ and what he's done for us, and that he came as our sacrifice.
Right. So it becomes a tool then that we can use to actually enhance our worship rather than something that would hinder it.
And Thanksgiving, think about that.
Absolutely,
it's an important holiday, and it's a tradition, and you could say it's an American tradition and a legal holiday and all of that. But for us to sit down and have turkey in a traditional manner and stuffing and all of that, and as Christians use that as a day to celebrate Christ and to thank God for all that he's given us, there's nothing wrong with that. And it's the contrarian, I find. It's that kind of argumentative person that wants to find these connections, search them out, and then try and condemn the other Christian for having anything to do with that day or that kind of celebration, unless it's inherently sinful. Right? I mean, if you're getting drunk, or if you're stealing, or I can see where clearly that's wrong. Right. But putting up a tree, decorating your house with lights, having a Thanksgiving meal in November, there's nothing sinful about that inherently. And we ought to redeem every day and live every day for Christ, and whatever opportunity we can have, vehicle we can create, let's use all of it to live for Christ.
Yeah, making the most of the time because the days are evil. Well, thank you so much, Pastor Mike. Very helpful on a cultural topic that everyone needs to address. If you have any more questions like that, please feel free to send them to us, and we'd love to help you out.